Probably raise fold to a shove. I guess open cramming is almost better, but I mean, nah. I think raise folding's better. I don't think either of these are going to be reshoving on me light, so I'm just going to raise fold. Just because King 9 suited will be perform very terrible against their reshoving ranges. The stacks are good for a reshove, but I just don't think this guy will be. I think both of these players aren't very good, so they both have 1 star or 2 stars. So so I'm not worried about it. Now this is a really good spot because the big blind sitting out. Oh crap! I was gonna say, since he's sitting out, it's a lot more likely. People are a lot more likely to do something like reshove light on you. I'm thinking of doing something really obvious and flatting here, just because I don't necessarily think my opponent's that good. He is opening early position, so the chance that he calls a shove is fairly decent anyways, I guess. Yeah, I'm just going to do it. Anything else looks kind of fishy, and I have been shoving and opening a fair amount, so hopefully he just has something. He is opening early position, so there's a decent likelihood he actually just has something. And obviously, if we pick up the pot, it kind of sucks. Obviously, you want action with your aces, but you don't want to make your range really polarized towards like medium strength hands when you're reshoving 20 big blinds. You have to include your big hands when you're doing it too, if you're going to be reshoving like, you know, like sevens and stuff, which I will be often here. So hopefully this guy calls. He's actually tanking, which is nice. Oh Lord, come on, someone wake up with something. You call and you call. Come on. I don't mind 3-way all-in. If I lose, I lose, but if I triple up, I triple up. Come on. 2 calls. That's what I want to see. What's going on? Did I lose my internet? Oh, okay. Damn. Come on, buddy. I know you want to call. It's only half your stack. You're getting an okay price. I could have a fairly wide range. Come on. God, that's so sick. God, that's so sick. That's the reason that flatting is tempting there. And if and like I say, the main reason you don't flat there normally is because it just makes it really obvious what you have to any like semi-competent player. But if you're not playing players like I said, I don't recognize anyone at this table. There's no reason to think anyone at this table is very good. Then the flat won't send off alarm bells to them. They're not going to think, oh, he has 20x and he's flatting. He obviously has aces or kings. They're just going to be like, oh, he just called. He probably has like a small pair. So because they're just, I mean, they just don't think on that level. So for that reason, flatting there is not too bad, depending on the level that you're playing at and who's opening. If that was a loose and aggressive, decent to good player, then I like my shove. Considering that the makeup of my table and how weak it is, I kind of like flatting there. It might induce a shove from one of these guys from behind, or even if it doesn't, then whatever the flop is, you'll most likely get another c-bet out of this guy, whereas the reshove might get him to fold quite a bit of hands, a large number of hands. So, yeah. Okay, so we'll probably be raise calling this, although, again, given how these people play and given that we're right on the bubble, if I do get re-raised, I'm going to be pretty worried that it's by a very strong hand, especially if it's like a small re-raise. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone flat me, you know, on like a really stupid stack size for flatting. How fly I think is short enough that we'll definitely call. And looks like he's a small winning player, so yeah. Oh yeah, over a big sample. Yeah, so we'll definitely call Howley here. Small winner, huge sample, 13 level. So, I mean, we did have aces and tens the last couple hands, but as you can see, we're getting quite a bit of folds just because probably we're right on the bubble, but at the same time, I don't want to press my luck. So, yeah, it's too bad. Too bad we didn't get action with those, but at least we built our stack up a little bit. Sigh. I mean, it's kind of results oriented on my part, but I'm kind of wishing I flatted the aces. And then sometimes you flat the aces, and like sometimes it costs you action too. So you can't always beat yourself up over it. Like for example, say the guy has tens and he's opening, and he's going to call a reshove for sure with tens. Then you cost yourself action when you just flat the raise and the flop comes like king queen 2 or something. And now he might check fold, he might still continuation bet, but then he's going to fold to your shove once he does. So whereas if you had just shoved pre, he's going to stick it, he's going to snap call with his tens or jacks or nines or hands like that. So it's still like a fine play. I still don't really hate my shove because of reasons like that. But at the same time, if you're playing bad players and you want to mix up your game, especially if you're going to want to flat a hand on 20 big blinds, like maybe 9s or 8s, and just see a flop before you commit, which I don't recommend doing too often, but if that's how you're going to play a 20 big blind stack with those medium strength hands, then you should probably obviously include some aces and kings in your flatting range for sure. And yeah, but not too many ace kings or hands that you really want to get in pre for obvious reasons, because you want to see all 5 cards. So blinds just went up. Yeah, so we're down to 15 big blinds, pretty shallow stacks. And we're down to 388 players, so people should be going out pretty quick. Oh no, we're not. Okay, we still got 20 big blinds, which is nice. Nice playable stack. So I'll definitely be posting this video. Sometimes I make videos and I don't know if I'm going to post them or not based on, how they come out, like the action that happens at the table, whether it was boring or whether there was, interesting spots or whether I get far or not. But there's been some interesting spots here, and also obviously we got second in the 45 man while I was playing here, so that's interesting and slightly exciting. It wasn't for huge money or anything, but it's worth watching, and it's instructive. Yeah, and the only thing was questionable about my play at that one, I think, was maybe the queen 6 off shove heads up. There's a way to heads up. You can calculate the appropriate shoving ranges, like for different stack sizes, like with like the Sage system, I think. I don't really recall what it is, but I have a good. I don't like memorize the charts exactly, but I have a good like intuitive sense for which hands are correct to shove heads up on, like 10 big blinds, on 7 big blinds, on 5 big blinds, on 14 big blinds, etc. So, but you might want to. There's obviously math involved in figuring out what those ranges are, and it's kind of complex, but I think there's places where you can just look up more or less different optimal shoving ranges. I think in No Limit Hold'em Theory and Practice by Sklansky, there's a chart that shows that, but I think his doesn't include antes. But basically, with antes, you would just like look at the ranges that are profitable for shoving, and then widen them just like slightly more, basically. Because obviously, it depends how large the antes are too. If it's like a whole nother big blind worth of antes, then you would widen them quite a bit. But if the antes are fairly insignificant compared to the blind size, or like medium, then you just like open up the shoving range that is correct if there were no antes. If that makes sense, it's kind of convoluted explanation, I guess, but basically there's a correct optimal, or I should not necessarily optimal, inexploitable range of shoving hands and range of calling hands on like 10 big blinds, on 9 big blinds, on 8 big blinds, on 7 big blinds stack. So hands that if you shove those ranges and if you call with those ranges from the big blind, then the other player won't be able to beat you. The only thing he could do is call and shove with the exact same ranges, and then it'll neutralize you, but that won't beat you either. So basically, it's just an unexploitable heads-up strategy for when when the stacks are really shallow, based on the mathematics. And so, yeah, so that's basically what you should do. And obviously, when the stacks are more like 20 big blinds or bigger, then it's not necessarily just a all-in or fold situation. There could be, ways to play hands that are more optimal than, shoving the correct push, than just a basic push-fold strategy, basically. But when you have around, like 14 big blinds or less, then mostly the optimal strategy will be either just push-fold, and to do it with the correct ranges based on the size of the stacks. Obviously, the larger the stack sizes, the fewer hands you can shove with, and the fewer hands you can call with, the narrower your ranges are. And then conversely, the smaller the stacks are, the more hands you're shoving with, and the more hands you're calling with. But yeah, so a lot of people think once it's like 10 big blinds, you just shove literally almost any two on the button, and it's not quite true. Even with antes, it's not necessarily true. You're shoving almost any two suited cards. That's true. The strength of the suited, the value of having suited cards actually goes up, or like increases the strength of your hand significantly if you're shoving on the button. So like even hands like 9-3 suited and like 6-3 suited, really low card, not very connected hands, are still shoves if you have 10 big blinds heads up. But then hands more like 9, like even like 9 6 off or something probably isn't a shove, even with the connectedness. If you have 10 big blinds. If you've got more like 8 big blinds or 7, then I think 9-6 off does become a shove. But basically, there's a threshold of hands, and then some people think on 10 big blinds you're supposed to call like extremely wide, range against a button shove, and you are supposed to call a fairly wide range, but not that wide. Like you're supposed, like for example, you're not supposed to call with every offsuit king when you're 10 big blinds deep and the guy shoves on the button, even though a king, is a lot of times good against what he's shoving on the button, but calling's a lot different than shoving. It looks like people are stalling or something on the bubble here. We got about 4 people to go to the money, so I guess, yeah, they are stalling for sure. And he shoves on us, and I think he's not shoving that wide of a range. We're not getting that good of a price. So, and as we were just talking about, King 3 is not really the type of hand that you call shoves with. We were talking about heads up, shallow stacked, obviously.